Joe, in some of your talks, you allude to a third offset and what might have come before that. Could you share that with us today?
Sure, and I should really give credit to Bob Work, the former Deputy Sec Def in the last administration. Even if he is a Marine, he has an excellent brain. Bob talks about the need for a third offset, a new technology, a new capability in which we dominate that will give us military superiority in the world that's coming. And Bob spent much of his time in office talking about what is the third offset. He rarely talked about the first two. And it is interesting in town how much discussion of the third offset there is without recognition of the first two. Let's talk about those two. The first one, coming at the latter part of World War II and dominating for decades after, were nuclear weapons. For some period of time in the 40s and early 50s, we uniquely had the bomb. No one else had it. And then we had more than others. And it was a capability not to be trucked with. So that was the first offset. The second offset, starting to emerge a small amount in the 70s and a huge piece of development through the 80s and even early 90s, was microprocessors. And a microprocessor's ability to deliver precision strike, nighttime capability, all-weather capability, and for well over a decade, we rode that horse of microprocessor-based defense equipment uniquely and confidently into the future. Now, the rest of the world has a growing number of nuclear powers, and the technology turnover time for microprocessor-based capability is very, very short and widely dominated. So we need, Bob says, points out, a third offset. What is it? We've talked before about artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics, unmanned systems, autonomy, cyber. It may well be a collection of those. I think it will be a collection of those, coupled also with the speed of data movement. So let's take artificial intelligence and militarized 5G capability. And we start to see the importance of third offset, a new dominant capability. But we have to make it more attractive for the kinds of companies that will bring us these capabilities to do business with us.
Amazing that that lesson has been taught over and over again, and we seem to ignore it. But it's staring us in the face. By the way, those prior offsets that you mentioned, my father's his last assignments in the Air Force was as a nuclear weapons officer, and one of the first innovative contracting activities that I engaged in when I became general counsel of DARPA was Sematech, regaining America's position in semiconductor manufacturing, and first and second offset issues, if you will. Where are we going to go from here, Joe?
Well, we need an economy that introduces another 14 trillion of GDP. We need first and foremost to do those things that makes America a global business leader that is respectful of innovation, that is furthering of innovation, all that on the economic side, and on the defense side, recognizing that the next conflict, Rick, may not be like World War II, where we had an opportunity to build up and to crank up the engines, the industrial engines of war, in time to deliver victory. My Marine friends are fond of saying we have to fight tonight. And by that they mean it's a come as you are, potentially a come as you are battle. So what tools are at our hands to do this? I'm a big believer in SBIRs as an example, because they are America's venture capital fund. You and I both are strong believers in consortia and OTAs as a way to speed our way through today's processes on the way to product. I'll share what I think is a dirty little secret, Rick. It'll be interesting to get your reaction to this. I don't really think you can do that much more with an OTA than you can with a courageous program manager, contracting officer, and counsel under the FAR. But it is a new-ish capability. It is known for cutting through the chaff and getting to product, and I like it a lot. Whether or not you could do it by the FAR method or not may be debatable, but we're not, so sign me up for OTAs.
Yeah, I absolutely disagree, since I have seen the things that have been done with OTAs that absolutely cannot be done, no matter how much top cover the contracting officer has, no matter how much goodwill the contracting officer. You can't sign 8 gas turbine engine manufacturers to one agreement. We did that with OTs. We bring in industry money to government projects with OTs. We deal with companies who absolutely refuse to do business with a FAR contract. I mean, the record is out there. And then in addition to that, Global Hawk. Global Hawk's in use today. Global Hawk was another transaction. So on the contracting level, it was non-FAR. It was an ACTD, an Advanced Concept Technology Demonstration. It was outside the 5,000 series acquisition regulations. The contractor at that time was Teledyne Ryan, and Global Hawk was, from program initiation to rollout, was a shorter time than Teledyne Ryan's previous effort, which was an Army vehicle, which was much smaller, much less capable than Global Hawk, but Global Hawk was delivered more expeditiously. And by the way, when the Air Force took it over, they were still grappling with 5,000 series issues when the ACTD Global Hawks were flying missions over Afghanistan. Arsenal ship, if you remember that, Arsenal ship was sunk by carrier admirals and submarine admirals, but it was on track to be delivered and in the water at unbelievably expeditious scheduling and at an incredible cost compared to anything that the Navy does in ships. Of course, Navy Sea Systems Command, there was that old mantra, the ship delivers when it delivers and it costs what it costs. Well, that was not the attitude of of arsenal ships. So I've actually seen the examples where things that you couldn't possibly do with a FAR contract under the traditional acquisition system have been done with OTs when people have put their mind to it. And by the way, just doing something differently liberates your thinking and allows you to strategize in a different way. I'm sorry, I'm rambling, and I really want to hear from you. And so we're sort of getting to the end. And if there is a comment about COVID that you want to make about what role it might play in where we are and where we're going, let me give you time to wrap up on that.
Well, I will, but I have to comment on your offerings. First of all, I will admit to being what our social media friends call trolling, because I knew in advance how you felt about this, and I don't disagree, and I think you were eloquent in explaining it. Though you are talking to the guy as a relatively young captain that built a new fighter plane as an ECP. So with enough moxie, you can muscle your way through even a hidebound system. But let's talk about COVID for a minute. It's if for no other reason, if there is a silver lining to the damn thing, we ought to focus on it for a minute. I think there may be. China is much more export dependent than is the US. We're import dependent. And you've seen that in the supply chain with protective equipment in the medical community and for the public. But we're going to adjust our supply chains. And our economy will recover, I believe, faster than competitive economies, specifically China. I don't think it's going to change the calculus. I still think we see emerging peer competitor in the Western Pacific, but I think it may buy us some time. And it compounds with one other important shift in China, Rick, and that is the demographics. 400 million people will leave working age in China in this century. There is a distribution of age that exceeds probably anything other than Japan's. So it is a quickly aging workforce, born, by the way, of tremendous gender imbalance, 18% more males in China than females, hence driving a much lower birth rate. And all of this the product of a multi-decade one-child policy. So it gives us some time to focus on product, to find speed, to embrace modern industries with new technologies, and to make it both exciting and profitable for them to deal with.
Appreciate that, Joe. And in addition to Bob Work and other Marines that have been praised as opposed to bashed here, I will mention General Al Gray. One of the things that he did after retiring was chaired the dual-use research panel at the Potomac Institute for Policy Studies, and recommended that dual use ought to be DoD's default science and technology position, and that other transactions ought to be the default instrument for conducting dual use projects. So some of those Marines, you know, they've got their thinking caps on, I think. Joe, thank you very much. I really appreciate you taking the time with us, and hope to see you in person in the not too distant future.
Well, thank you, Rick. It's always an honor to spend time with you, sir. Thank you for your many contributions to our business, and very best wishes.